Sheikh Imran, it will be very refreshing if you could share some thoughts regarding Dr. Israr and the work he has done.
I have only good things to say about Dr. Israr Ahmed. I have only good things to say. I consider him to be a man of great integrity, a great dedication, and great courage, and who, within the limits of the methodology that he lived with, who did the best that he could do. I was very happy when I was based in New York, and he came to New York, and I met him again. But prior to meeting him in New York in the 1980s, I met him, in the 1990s I met him in New York, but in the 1980s I met him for the first time in Karachi. And I invited him to my home, and my wife cooked a biryani.
Okay, excellent.
And my mother-in-law, who was the daughter of Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui, rahimahullah, the sister of Maulana Shah Ahmed Durrani. My mother-in-law was alive at that time, and she came to the home, and Dr. Israr, he ate the biryani, he enjoyed it, he would get back to Lahore and he wrote about it. And he sat down with my mother-in-law, the daughter of Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui, rahimahullah, and they had a long chat. And he spoke, he said about Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui, the Sufi Sheikh. He admired the magnetism of his personality. This is his language, yeah. And so I knew him even before we met in New York. And I was already admiring him in his work. But when he came to New York, I got an introduction, a taste of his organizational skill, what he had achieved, and before him Maulana Abul Ala Maududi rahimahullah, that these men had succeeded magnificently in establishing a jama'ah with discipline, beautiful organizational skill. And I was impressed with what they had done, because I didn't see the Sufis doing that. And then he put pressure on me. He wants me to come to Pakistan. He wants me to come to Pakistan. And he wants me to learn the Urdu language. Imran, you have to learn Urdu. And while I was here in Rawalpindi, I then decided to join the Tanzim. And it was a wonderful experience. The members of the Tanzim, the Rufaka, they welcomed me. It was a fraternity, and I enjoyed being a member of the Tanzim. And he even then went on to say, Imran, I want to appoint you as the Amir of Tanzim of Islami for the whole of North America. This is what he said to me. But then later on, there was a problem pertaining to methodology. And that stood between us. The methodology which I employed for the study of eschatology. I had not as yet written Jerusalem in the Quran, as yet, which is my first book on eschatology. But I was already lecturing on eschatology, yes. And because of methodology, our views were different. And I believe if I had been allowed to continue to lecture on this subject, then there would have been some problems. There would have been some problems. And so we parted ways, but even though he was no longer the Amir, and I was no longer a member of the Tanzim, my heart was still with the Tanzim. My heart was still with the Tanzim. And I still have only good things to say about Dr. Israr Ahmed and about the Tanzim.
Thank you, sir. These are precious thoughts that you have shared.